Hello everyone, welcome back to another Clarinet Friends concert. This one is entitled Reflections. I'll get into that in a little bit, but first I want to address my absence for the greater part of the last few months from producing concerts. I was off doing something called college auditions. It was quite the process. It took many months and there was many different rounds for each of the different schools. But I'm happy to say that that whole process is over. I'm finished. Hopefully I'll be hearing from some places soon. And in the meantime, we can get back to enjoying concerts together. So the program that I have for you today, entitled Reflections, is really about taking pieces, one of them a traditional piece and one of them a more contemporary piece, and really I took these two pieces because I saw that they had real moments of reflection in them, hence the word reflections, within a greater frame of something that may not come off as sort of like a somber piece or a reflective piece, but they have sort of a framework of an elaborate piece, but within them, if you search a little bit, there's some really nice moments that make you sort of pause and reflect, and sort of you realize the calm, the tranquilness of the moment that you're experiencing. So I think you'll see what I mean when you get into the pieces a little bit. But it's just sort of a subtle thing that I noticed with these two pieces, and I'll get into them later when I'm describing the pieces on their own. So to get into it, the first piece that we have for you on the program is by a composer that you've probably heard before. If you haven't, that's okay. I'll tell you a little bit about him. His name is Carl Maria von Weber, and it is his Grand Duo Concertant, one of his most unique pieces, and I'll explain that in a second after I tell you a little bit about Weber. So Weber was one of the first great romantic composers of the Romantic period of music. He was sort of at the end of the classical era, and he really brought about the Romantic era of music. And what he's really known for is his operatic writing, sort of a combination of his operatic writing and really sort of flashy, virtuosic writing that he sort of molded together really well within the same piece and within the same movement even, which is sort of what I noticed when titling this concert Reflections, is that in some of these movements in this piece, it's 3 movements, he combines very opera-like settings and sections with very virtuosic sections in the same movement, only a few bars apart, and which I find really fascinating. And it's sort of like a quick pause to take in sort of the beauty of the moment around you, and then you get back to doing something flashy with your fingers and everything. So to tell you a little bit about him, he was a German composer, conductor, virtuoso pianist, which you will probably notice when we get into the piece, and music critic. He was also one of the most well-known conductors of the era. Growing up, his family moved consistently between the cities of, you ready for this? Hamburg, Salzburg, Freiburg, Augsburg, and Vienna. He studied with many different teachers, and within his early years he had 4 operas already completed, which is quite an accomplishment. And he had a few works that were non-operas, such as a few concertos and piano pieces, and also 2 symphonies. But the thing that's interesting about his works, that sort of this new Romantic era of music, is that even though he wrote a lot of works that were not operas, they had opera sections within them, as I said before, and they had this whole new feel to them. It was like this combination, like I said earlier, of it was like a new level of flashiness that wasn't quite in some of the pieces of the classical era. He went a little bit farther than a lot of the composers like Mozart when it came to flashiness. He pushed the boundaries more, and he went a little bit more solemn and deeper with his operatic sections and combining those. So it's really sort of, he pushed the boundaries a lot more than probably anyone had heard before. So let me tell you a little bit about the piece now, the Grand Duo Concertant. This piece actually, right off the bat from when he started writing it, was going to be different than a lot of his other pieces, because he did not write the piece for the clarinetist that he'd always worked with on all of his other pieces, which was, he'd always worked with Heinrich Behrmann, who was a well-known German clarinetist of that era. He wrote he wrote a method book for clarinet that we clarinetists worship and play all the time. He did not work with Behrmann. Instead, he worked with a man called, let me find his name, Johann Harmstead. He worked with a different clarinetist this time. So it sort of already was going to be different, you know. So, but the main thing structurally that's different about this piece is it gives an equal weight to the clarinet part and the piano part. So an interesting story, Weber actually started to call this piece a sonata, but then he scrapped the name when he was realizing, okay, I'm giving all these flashy parts to the piano and the clarinet equally, so it's not really a sonata, it's really like a grand duo. So it's really hard to perform and sort of get a piano, for a clarinetist, it's hard to get a pianist that would be willing to play this, because it has so many crazy licks. And as one person, a historian, Harold Schoenberg, described the piece, some of the stretches that he wrote for the piano part cannot be played by normal human beings. So Weber premiered this piece, actually, as you probably could guess, because it was so impossible for many people to play. He premiered it in 1815 for King Maximilian I, Joseph of Bavaria, in Nymphenburg Palace. So that's a pretty grand setting for his grand duo. So let me tell you a little bit about the movements. The first movement sort of structured in sonata form, which is basically, it's like sort of an opening chapter of a piece that's repeated, and then they get into more, they sort of dive into more exploratory moods and different sort of settings with that. It starts with sort of like a flurry of scales and passages going up and down the register for each instrument. And one thing that is sort of interesting, he doubles a lot of the lines. He has the clarinet and the piano playing the same line at the same time a lot. So we're going like da 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 da. He has them going up and down together, so in unison, which is sort of it was different from a lot of the previous writing where sometimes they trade lines a little bit, but he has some trading of the lines in this as well. So it starts off with a lot of melodies being played in unison, and then it sort of gets into the deeper parts of the movement as you get into it a little more, some trading back and forth between different rhythms and ideas, and then it closes with a little bit of the similar ideas of the opening. Now the second movement is really where I see is really reflectionary, and it's sort of like a very calming pause, and that's where I got the idea for this piece, for the reflections, because it has all the flashy stuff in the first movement and the third movement, so it's surrounded by a lot of technical, flashy, virtuosic playing within a very almost solemn, and I think Weber actually wrote with pain. He wanted the performers to play this second movement with pain. It's extremely operatic, and this is where you can probably see, even though this is not an opera, this piece, it almost is like a setting within an opera. Like the clarinet is one character singing to another character, which is the piano. And the clarinet sort of has an opening line that is just very breathtaking and just sort of floats on the air, and then is answered next by the piano, and it gets really bold, and it is like the singer almost, or the clarinet player, is in pain, when they're playing it. So it's really a nice, calm reflection. There's some parts that are calm, there's some parts that are bold and very painful, soulful. So it's almost within this movement, there's many different moods that you feel, instead of just one mood per movement. So I find that really fascinating about this work. So then we get into the third movement, a rondo allegro, and this is sort of a deep breath of fresh air from the really the reflectionary moods of the second movement. It moves along really well. A lot of the runs sort of go back and forth between the clarinet and piano, as well as unison runs. And then in the middle of this movement, out of nowhere, he puts in a nice big opera section in the middle of this movement. And you think, why did he do that when he already had his second movement? But I think it's because, again, what I was saying earlier about Weber being so good about blending these different styles, it's a moment of reflection and love almost in the middle of a flashy movement. So it's not just different moods for different movements, it's different moods within each of these movements. So this piece is really complex, and it was really fun playing and working on it, very fun working on it with Lillian. So I hope you enjoy Weber's Grand Duo Concertant. enjoyed Weber's Grand Duo Concertant for clarinet and piano. The next and last piece on our program is Dosha McKAY's Two Moods for clarinet and piano. Before I tell you about the piece, I want to tell you a little bit about Dosha, because I think the way she sort of she approaches music and the arts is very fascinating and thorough, and I want to tell you a little bit about that. Dosha McKAY was born in 1971 in the Baltic city of Gdansk. She's an American composer of music for the concert stage, film, and modern dance. The way she writes, she describes her writing as sort of a mix of Slavic nostalgia expressed by introspective minor tonalities and lyrical melodies. And in more recent years, she has been drawn toward a more ambiguous sonic landscapes reflective of her own abstract paintings. This piece was written in 2009, so 12 years ago. This is really perfect, I think, for this idea of reflections I was talking about earlier for the other piece and for this concert, because she sort of takes these moods that she sets in sometimes some of her paintings and creative art and poetry and writing, and she envisions them. How would I portray that mood? I'm assuming how would I portray this mood in a piece, in a work of music? So I really think this piece is perfect for this concert of reflections, because they're two very contrasting moods. The first one is called Haunted of the piece, and the second is called Wind Chimes. And I'll get into more of it later, but it's just, I think it works perfectly for this reflections concert, because she writes with the idea of trying to sort of envision different moods and feelings and observing them. She writes with those ideas in the piece while she's thinking about it while she's writing that. So I think that's almost like the idea of our concert is built in to the way she wrote this piece. So that's why I think this is perfect. She holds a master's in music in scoring for film and multimedia from New York University, NYU, and a bachelor's in composition from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And some of her notable performances have been through Knoxville Symphony Orchestra, North-South Connaissance Orchestra in New York, the Polish Avant-Garde String Quartet, Neo Quartet, SEM Ensemble, Spartanburg Philharmonic, Asheville Ballet, Spartanburg Philharmonic String Trio, I should say. And so the way I've sort of found out about Dosha is my teacher, Steve Lowe, had worked on this piece actually with some years ago, and he had worked with her on it, and he told me that I should really play this piece for one of my auditions, and I did, and that's how I sort of found out about her. But I read a little bit about how she describes the piece, the Two Moods, and let me pull that up for you. So Dosha describes the two moods as depicting two opposite states of mind. The first movement, Haunted, illustrates an eerie, suspenseful feeling intertwined with passages of sheer panic and terror. Here, the composer recalls and confronts her childhood fear of being left alone in the dark. So that's the first movement, Haunted. The second movement, now, she describes, which is called Wind Chimes, portrays a feeling of freedom, release, and beauty inspired by the gentle pentatonic scale rattle of wind chimes outside her writing studio. Here she also pays homage to composer Aaron Copland with her soft and colorful harmonic palette. So she sort of sees, I'm assuming the way she writes this, she sort of describes them different, like they're two sort of separate pieces together, very contrasting, but I sort of envision this a little bit differently. I actually envision them as sort of almost one piece together, in the way that I had fear as a child of being alone in the dark, as many other children do, and when I would have a nightmare or something, like depicted in the first movement, Haunted, I would, rush to my parents, scream for my parents, and I would find solace in them holding me as a young child and hugging me and feeling them hugging me. And that's where I think the haunted movement connects with the wind chimes. The wind chimes is very beautiful and soaring, delicate, and I don't really see it as like frivolous and happy. I see it as sort of solemn and reflective and very emotional. So I think this, like the opening few notes of wind chimes, is really portraying the love between the mother, a child and their mother or father or guardian. So I really see these two as connected in a way that a child is scared of a nightmare, and then they rush to their parent or guardian, and then they find that solace, which is represented in the wonderfully beautiful moods and soaring melodies and sort of impressions that Dosha McKay creates in the second movement, the wind chimes. So I really find that's what this wind chimes movement is really personal to me because it's so emotional and I just find it so touching. But I just sort of see these two movements as more connected than she really describes them. But without further ado, here is Dosha McKay's Two Moods for Clarinet and Piano. Thank you so much for coming to our live stream concert reflections. I hope you enjoyed the Grand Duo Concertant and the Two Moods. And I hope you saw what I meant with the delicacy and the beauty of that the piece that Dosha wrote. And also one more thing that I didn't really touch on is in the wind chimes, there's a really beautiful parts between the clarinet and piano dovetailing, soaring lines between one another. So it's just really beautiful. If you want to go back and watch a little bit more, you can, and to see what I mean when I'm talking about so the dovetailing of the lines near the end. It's just I think it's just really terrific writing by Dosha, and I am very thankful for her writing that piece. It's impossible to breathe in that piece, but I'm thankful that she wrote it because it's very moving to me. But if you enjoyed this concert, please go to clarinetfriends.com. You can donate and pay what you can for this concert. It costs money to produce and play with Lillian. I'm so thankful to her as well for playing with me and recording this concert for you all. So please pay what you can for this concert by going to our website and donating. I thank you all for your generosity supporting the arts during this time. Hopefully we can get back to some form of normal performing arts sometime soon, in person, hopefully, maybe at the end of this year. I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone again and having that sort of energy that comes from a live performance again. So, so please go to our website to pay what you can for this concert, and please, everyone, stay healthy, well, and I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon. Thanks again.